They said I'd starve painting pictures. Now, they're eating crow. Hey everyone, welcome back. Mark here. 32 years old, freelance concept artist, and yeah, living pretty comfortably, wouldn't you say? This is what a few million selling game titles buys you. But trust me, the view wasn't always this good. Growing up in suburban Connecticut, life was predictable. My parents, Robert and Susan, were the embodiment of the American dream. Dad ran a local accounting firm. Mom volunteered at the church and the country club. They had a vision board for my life before I could even hold a crayon. It was doctor, lawyer, maybe a respectable engineer if I insisted on something technical. My older sister, Sarah, she was their masterpiece. Straight A's, captain of the debate team, landed the prom king. She ticked all the boxes. Me? Well, I was more into sketching superheroes and writing elaborate fantasy stories in my notebook. A disappointment in human form, according to Dad. From the time I could hold a pencil, I was drawing. Doodling in the margins of my textbooks, filling sketchbooks with fantastical creatures, even painting murals on my bedroom walls, much to my mom's initial horror. My parents saw it as a cute hobby, a phase I'd grow out of. They enrolled me in soccer, then baseball, then piano lessons, hoping to broaden my horizons. But all I wanted to do was create. The lessons didn't stick, but the art did. The real clash came senior year of high school. College application time. The pressure was immense. My parents had already picked out the Ivy League school they wanted me to attend, the one Sarah had graced with her presence. Then I dropped the bomb. I wanted to go to Rhode Island School of Design. Art school? Dad roared, his face turning a shade of red I usually only saw when the Yankees lost. Are you insane? What kind of career is that? You'll be a starving artist, living in a cardboard box. It's a dead end, Mark. A complete waste of your potential. Mom tried to be the voice of reason, but she was firmly on Dad's side. Honey, we just want what's best for you. Art is a nice hobby, but it's not a stable career path. Think about your future, your security. That argument was the opening salvo in World War III. They deployed every weapon in their arsenal. Guilt trips. After everything we've done for you. Financial threats. We're not paying for some fancy art school. Emotional manipulation. You're breaking your mother's heart. They even brought in Sarah to try and talk some sense into me. Sarah, bless her heart, tried. She sat me down in my room, surrounded by my art supplies and half-finished projects. Look, Mark, I get it. You're passionate about this stuff. But Mom and Dad have a point. It's a tough world out there. Art is risky. I pushed back, explaining how much it meant to me and how I had a whole plan outlined. I had researched programs, internships, and potential career paths. But they weren't listening. Maybe take some business classes as well, Sarah suggested hesitantly, just to have something to fall back on. I knew she was just trying to keep the peace, but it felt like a betrayal. She was siding with them, reinforcing the idea that my dreams were invalid. Despite their opposition, I applied to our ISD in secret. Letters of recommendation came from my high school art teacher, Mr. Evans, who saw something in me that my parents couldn't. He encouraged my creativity and helped me build a strong portfolio. When the acceptance letter arrived, I was ecstatic. But my joy was short-lived. I knew I had to tell my parents. The conversation was even worse than I expected. Dad was livid. He refused to speak to me for days. Mom cried, saying I was ruining my life. They made it clear that if I went to art school, I was on my own. No financial support, no help with anything. The day I left for Providence, the atmosphere in the house was icy. Mom forced a hug, her eyes red and puffy. Dad just stood in the doorway, arms crossed, shaking his head in disapproval. Sarah offered a weak smile and a hug, but I could see the fear in her eyes. She was afraid of defying our parents, of jeopardizing her own perfect life. So I packed my bags, loaded up my beat-up Honda Civic with all my worldly possessions, and drove away. I was 18, scared, and completely alone. But I was also free. Art school was a revelation. Suddenly, I was surrounded by people who got me, who shared my passion, who understood the urge to create. We spent hours in the studio, experimenting with different mediums, pushing our creative boundaries. Late nights fueled by caffeine and cheap pizza, critiquing each other's work, supporting each other's struggles. Money was a constant worry. My parents had cut me off completely, just as they promised. I worked part-time jobs, waiting tables, stocking shelves, even drawing caricatures at the local mall to make ends meet. Ramen noodles were a staple in my diet. There were times when I doubted myself, when I wondered if my parents were right, if I was making a huge mistake. But then I'd lose myself in my art, and all the doubts would fade away. I was doing what I loved. I was learning, growing, and finding my voice. My work started getting noticed. I won a few student awards, landed a couple of small freelance gigs. It wasn't much, but it was enough to keep me going. After graduating, I entered the real world, a world even tougher than I imagined. The freelance market was brutal. I sent out hundreds of resumes and portfolios, faced countless rejections. I lived on a shoestring, hopping from one temporary job to another. I designed logos for local businesses, illustrated children's books, even painted murals in restaurants. It was a grind, but I was building my portfolio, honing my skills, and slowly but surely making a name for myself. Then came the break. A small indie game company in Boston hired me as a concept artist for their new project. It was a low-paying gig, but it was a foot in the door. I poured my heart and soul into the project, creating the visual world for the game, designing the characters, the environments, everything. The game was a success. A surprise hit. It went viral, garnering critical acclaim and a massive online following. My artwork was praised for its originality, its detail, and its emotional impact. Suddenly, I wasn't just another struggling artist. I was in demand. Other game companies came calling, offering me bigger and better projects. I negotiated contracts, built a team of talented artists, and started my own small studio. And then, the lottery ticket. I created the lead character design and key environment paintings for a video game that became a global phenomenon. A cultural phenomenon. The game sold millions of copies, spawned sequels, merchandise, even a movie deal. My royalties were astronomical. Offers poured in from all over the world. I was suddenly rich. Really, really rich. I bought this apartment, overlooking the city. I traveled the world, exploring new cultures, drawing inspiration from new landscapes. I indulged in my passions, collecting art, playing music, and supporting other struggling artists. I could finally breathe. For a long time, I didn't contact my family. The hurt was too deep. The rejection still stung. I knew they were aware of my success. Sarah had probably told them. But they never reached out. Pride, I guess. Or maybe shame. Then, a few months ago, my phone rang. It was Sarah. Her voice was strained, hesitant. "Hey, Mark," she said. "How are you?" We made small talk for a few minutes, catching up on each other's lives. She congratulated me on my success, said she was proud of me. I could tell she was walking on eggshells. Then came the bomb. "Mom and Dad, they're having some financial trouble," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "Dad's business isn't doing well, and they're facing foreclosure on the house." My heart sank. A wave of conflicting emotions washed over me. Part of me felt a sense of vindication, a smug satisfaction. See? I told you success isn't always about stuffy careers. But another part of me, the part that still longed for their approval, felt a pang of guilt, of sadness. Sarah continued, They were wondering if maybe you could help them out. Silence hung in the air. I didn't know what to say. They threw me out. They told me I was a failure. They dismissed my dreams. And now, when they were in trouble, they came crawling back? I managed to stammer. I need to think about it. Days turned into weeks. I tossed and turned at night, unable to sleep. I wrestled with the decision. Should I help them? Did they deserve it? Or should I let them face the consequences of their actions? I talked to my friends, Maya and David. Maya, a fellow artist who had struggled for years before finding success, was firmly in the "they don't deserve it" camp. Mark, they treated you like dirt, she said, her voice filled with anger. They never believed in you, never supported you. Why should you bail them out now? David, a more pragmatic friend who worked in finance, took a different approach. Family is family, Mark. You can't just turn your back on them, no matter what they did. I went back and forth, weighing the pros and cons, the past and the present. Their rejection had shaped me, hardened me, but it had also fueled my drive. Without their negativity, would I have worked as hard to prove them wrong? Would helping them be a betrayal of my younger self, the one they dismissed? Or would it be an act of forgiveness, a chance to finally break free from the past? I thought about all the things I had always wanted, to be accepted, loved, and respected for who I am. But should I give them the money? Or was there another way? After weeks of agonizing, I made a decision. I called Sarah back, my hand shaking. It had taken me nearly a week to steel myself for this conversation. It felt like I was walking a tightrope with no safety net. Okay, I said, my voice trembling slightly. I'll help, but on one condition. I laid out my terms. I would pay off their debts, save their house from foreclosure. But I wasn't going to give them the money directly. I would handle everything myself, making the payments to the bank and the creditors. And there would be no more loans, no more bailouts in the future. This was a one-time deal. They don't get a say in how I do it? Sarah asked hesitantly. No, I said firmly. They don't. They agreed to the terms reluctantly. I could hear the disappointment in Sarah's voice. They had probably hoped for a blank check, a chance to return to their old lifestyle. But I wasn't going to let that happen. Maybe I was being harsh, but I needed to protect myself. I needed to set boundaries. I couldn't let them suck me back into their world of negativity and control. The money was transferred. The debts were paid. The house was saved. But something else had changed too. The power dynamic had shifted. I was no longer the disappointing son, the failure who had chosen the wrong path. I was the successful artist, the one who had made it against all odds. My parents never apologized. They never acknowledged my art as a legitimate career. But they did express their gratitude. In their own, awkward way. I visited them a few weeks later. The atmosphere was still strained, but there was a glimmer of something different. A hesitant respect, perhaps. Dad even asked me about my work, about the games I was creating. He didn't understand the technology, but he seemed genuinely interested. Mom told me she had started following my work online, admiring my art. She even bought a print of one of my paintings for their living room. It wasn't a complete resolution, not by a long shot. There are still issues, still wounds that need to heal. But we are slowly, cautiously, working through them. The relationship is different now. More honest, perhaps. More complicated. But it's a start. And that's my story. What do you guys think? Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more crazy stories. Optional additions to meet the word count goal, further character development or elaboration on side events. To really flesh out Sarah's character, I could add more details about her life. Maybe she's secretly unhappy in her marriage, feeling trapped in the perfect suburban life she's built. Perhaps she envies my freedom and creative expression. I could delve deeper into the reasons behind her fear of rocking the boat, exploring her own insecurities and vulnerabilities. I could also add a scene where I revisit my old high school art teacher, Mr. Evans. He could offer some words of wisdom and perspective on the situation with my parents, reminding me of the importance of staying true to myself and forgiving those who have wronged me. Finally, I could elaborate on the impact of my success on my local community. Maybe I start a scholarship fund for aspiring artists, or donate to local art organizations. This would show how I'm using my wealth and influence for good, and how I'm giving back to the community that supported me when I was struggling. It shows that I am not motivated by hate or revenge, but a chance to spread love and happiness.